Have you ever stared at a really complex circuit diagram and just felt completely overwhelmed? Well, today we're going to demystify the two simple rules that can solve basically any circuit puzzle out there: Kirchhoff's laws. Seriously, by the end of this, you'll have the key to untangle even the gnarliest electronic messes.
So, you've probably got Ohm's law down, right? V equals IR. And look, it's great for simple circuits. One battery, a couple of resistors, and a nice, neat line. But let's be real. The world is messy. So what do you do when you have multiple power sources or tangled loops of components? Ohm's law by itself, well, it just isn't enough.
Exactly. The moment you start adding in extra batteries, or you've got paths that cross and loop back on each other, Ohm's law needs some serious backup. It just wasn't designed to handle that kind of complexity.
And this is where our hero, Gustav Kirchhoff, comes onto the scene. He gave us two incredibly powerful laws that let us analyze any closed DC circuit, no matter how complicated it looks. These are the absolute must-have tools for anyone who's serious about electronics.
Okay, let's dive into the first one. This one is all about how electric current behaves. It's called the junction law. And you know what? It's probably one of the most intuitive rules in all of physics. It just makes sense.
Now here's the official, straight from the textbook definition. It sounds a little formal, a little mathy, right? The algebraic sum is 0. But what is that actually telling us?
All it means is what goes in must come out. That's it. Just picture any point in a circuit where a bunch of wires meet up. We call that a junction. All the current flowing into that point has to be exactly equal to all the current flowing away from it. The charge can't just disappear into thin air.
And this isn't just some random rule for circuits, It comes from one of the most fundamental laws in the universe, the conservation of charge. You can't just create or destroy electric charge. The water pipe analogy is perfect here. I mean, if you have water flowing into a T-junction from two pipes, the amount of water coming out the third pipe has to be the sum of those first two, right? Well, electrons in a wire act the exact same way.
So, if the first law is all about conserving charge, the second law is all about conserving energy. This one's called the loop law, and it deals with voltage, or what we sometimes call electric potential.
And again, here's the formal definition. It talks about the increases and decreases in potential difference as you go around a closed loop. So, think of it this way. A battery increases the potential. It gives energy. And a resistor decreases it. It uses energy.
The easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think about climbing a mountain. A battery is like a ski lift. It does work on you. It gives you a big boost in potential energy by taking you up the mountain. A resistor, well, that's like skiing back down. You're using up all that potential energy. The loop law just says that if you start at the lodge, ride the lift all the way up, and then ski all the way back down to the lodge, your net change in elevation is 0. You're right back where you started. It's the same for an electron going on a round trip in a circuit.
And that just illustrates the core principle so brilliantly. Just like the junction law is about the conservation of charge, the loop law is all about the conservation of energy. All the energy that the batteries pump into a loop has to be completely used up by all the components, like resistors, in that very same loop. It has to balance out perfectly.
Okay, theory is awesome, but let's actually see how this stuff works in the real world. We're going to apply these laws to an actual circuit, and you'll see how they turn what looks like a complicated problem into something totally manageable. This is where the magic really happens. All right, have a look at this circuit. We've got two different batteries, V1 and V2, and 3 resistors all connected together. See how there's no way you could just simplify this down to a single equivalent resistance? It's just too tangled. This is the perfect job for Kirchhoff's laws. So here's our 4-step game plan. First, we'll just guess a direction for the current in each path. Then, we apply our new laws to create a few equations. And finally, we solve them with some pretty simple algebra. And hey, don't worry if you guess the direction of a current wrong. The math will actually correct you. You'll just get a negative number at the end, which means it's flowing the other way. No big deal.
Okay, step 1. Let's start with the junction law. If we look at that point labeled B in our diagram, we can see we've assumed currents I1 and I2 are flowing in, and current I3 is flowing out. So, our first equation is as simple as it gets. I1 plus I2 equals I3. Boom, one equation down.
Now for the loop law. Let's trace that left-hand loop, moving clockwise. First, we cross battery V2, going from the negative to the positive terminal. That's a voltage gain, so we write down a positive V2. Next, we go through resistor R3. Resistors always cause a voltage drop, so that's a minus.
The drop is just current times resistance, I3 times R3. And hey, we know from our first equation that I3 is just I1 plus I2. So we subtract I1 plus I2 times R3. And finally, we cross resistor R2, another drop, so we subtract I2 times R2. And that's it. We're back where we started, so the whole thing adds up to 0.
We're going to do the exact same thing now for the right-hand loop. We cross battery V1s, that's a gain, plus V1. Then we go through resistor R3 again, that's another voltage drop of I1 plus I2 times R3. And lastly, we cross resistor R1, which is a drop of I1 times R1. We've made our way back, so it all equals 0. And just like that, we have 3 unique equations and 3 unknown currents. The physics is done. Now it's just an algebra problem.
So, here's the really crucial takeaway. By just systematically applying these 2 laws, you can turn a confusing tangle of wires into a straightforward algebra problem that you can solve. It's an incredibly powerful method that works every single time.
All right, let's do a quick recap. We'll just put these 2 powerful laws right next to each other to make sure the difference between them is totally crystal clear.
So on one hand, you have the junction law. It's all about the current at a single point, and it's based on the conservation of charge. On the other hand, you have the loop law. It's all about the voltage around a closed path, and it's based on the conservation of energy. 2 different laws built on 2 of the biggest, most fundamental principles in all of physics.
Before we wrap up, I just want to leave you with one last thought that really puts all of this into a bigger perspective.
Isn't it just amazing to think about? When you're using Kirchhoff's laws to figure out a circuit, you're not just doing electronics homework. You are applying the very same cosmic principles, conservation of charge and conservation of energy, that govern everything from the tiniest subatomic particles to the formation of entire galaxies. It's a pretty beautiful reminder of how deeply connected all the laws of physics really are. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.